The Interstellar Academy of Xenobiology sat at the edge of the Vadran Cluster, a gleaming orbital station that housed 2,000 students from 47 species. It was, by most galactic standards, the finest academic institution in the known universe. And on this particular Tuesday morning, it was about to have a very bad day. Professor Kale Veyron had been teaching comparative predator studies for 31 years. He had dissected the hunting patterns of the Garethian spinestalker. He had catalogued the neural aggression triggers of the Molvac deep crusher. He had once, famously, stood inside a containment field with a juvenile Crethian bloodhound and survived without losing more than 2 fingers, a story he told at every faculty dinner. He was not, by any stretch, an academic easily impressed. Which made it all the more irritating that a single human transfer student was making him feel something uncomfortably close to alarm. Cadet Mara Ellison had arrived 3 weeks ago from a planet called Earth, a Deathworld, technically, though the Academy Registrar had filed her homeworld classification under a cheerful little euphemism, high-stimulus biosphere. Veyron had pulled the actual threat index after her first class. Earth scored a 7.4 on the Galactic Predator Density Scale. The Garethian jungle, the most dangerous biome the Academy had previously studied, scored a 5.9. He had not slept well after reading that. Mara herself was small. Distressingly small. She stood at approximately 1.68 meters, had dark hair cropped close on one side, and wore the same slightly too confident expression that Veyron associated with students who either failed spectacularly or became legends. She asked questions that were polite on the surface and somehow unsettling underneath. Last week she had listened to his entire lecture on apex predator intimidation displays and then raised her hand and said, very pleasantly, "Professor, have you ever studied a saltwater crocodile?" He had not known what a saltwater crocodile was. He had looked it up that evening. He had not slept well after that, either. The assignment was straightforward, or had seemed so when Veyron designed it 3 years ago. Field demonstration exercise: bring a specimen representative of your homeworld's predator hierarchy. Present it to the class. Explain its biological adaptations, threat mechanisms, and ecological role. Every species did it. The Vorith twins had brought a crystalline sandfong from Vorith Prime. Student Yelik had presented a screaming mosscrawler from the swamps of Gel-Linda 4. Even meek little cadet Oryuan from the pastoral moon of Cethys 4 had brought a creature called a thornboar that had made 2 students faint. Mara had requested a specialized containment unit 3 days in advance. The containment unit she requested was rated for aquatic apex predators up to Category 6. Veyron had approved it without thinking. He had been distracted by midterm grading. The classroom held 40 students. 40 students from 40 different species, ranging from the 6-limbed Calith to the translucent Vasari who communicated primarily through bioluminescent skin patterns. They had all seen dangerous creatures before. They were, collectively, a fairly composed group of future xenobiologists. The room went very quiet when Mara wheeled in the containment unit. It was a reinforced transparasteel tank, approximately 4 meters long and filled with water. The water was murky. Something large moved in it, something that barely fit, something that had to curl its enormous body in a slow, patient arc just to turn around. It was greenish-brown. It was armored in thick, irregular scales. Its eyes sat on top of its flat skull like 2 surveillance cameras, fixed, patient, and utterly empty of anything resembling mercy. Its jaw was long. Its jaw was very, very long. And it was lined, along both edges, top and bottom, with teeth that overlapped even when its mouth was closed. It was also completely still. That was somehow the worst part. Cadet Yelik made a sound that translated roughly to "I would like to leave now." Nobody left. They were all too fascinated and too afraid to move. Mara stood beside the tank with a datapad in her hand and the expression of someone showing off a particularly nice houseplant. "This," she said, "is a saltwater crocodile. Crocodilus porosus. It's approximately 5 meters long and weighs around 600 kilograms. This individual is a juvenile male. She paused and glanced at the tank. Juveniles are smaller. She let that sit for a moment. Professor Veyron, standing at the back of the room with his arms crossed and his secondary eyelids partially closed, a reflex, the Veronese equivalent of a wince, said, very carefully, you said, juvenile. Mara swiped through her datapad. Adults average around 6 meters. The largest confirmed individual on record was just over 7 meters. They can also swim in open ocean. They've been found 900 kilometers from the nearest coastline. She looked up. Nobody's entirely sure why. The bioluminescent patterns on Cadet Vasari's skin cycled rapidly through several colors that Veyron recognized as distress indicators. They are, Mara continued, with the measured cadence of someone who had clearly rehearsed this and was enjoying it slightly too much, the largest living reptiles on Earth. They are also among the least changed organisms in our biosphere. Their basic body plan has remained essentially stable for approximately 200 million years. Silence. To put that in context, she added helpfully, that predates the extinction of most of Earth's megafauna by about 65 million years. Crocodilians survived that extinction event. What caused the extinction event? Asked Cadet Prith, who was from a species known for asking follow-up questions at the exact wrong moment. An asteroid impact. Pritha's 4 eyes all blinked at different times. And the crocodile survived. Mara nodded pleasantly. Along with some birds and a few other things. Most of the big ones didn't make it. The crocodile was fine. The actual presentation was 20 minutes long. Mara covered sensory biology, the crocodile's ability to detect pressure changes in water, its infrared-sensitive dermal pressure receptors, its third eyelid, its extraordinarily efficient metabolism that allowed it to survive without eating for over a year if needed. She covered its bite force, which she described as the highest of any currently living animal on Earth, with the casual tone of someone discussing weather. She covered its ambush methodology, which involved an animal the size of a small vehicle achieving almost total invisibility in shallow water and then exploding into motion faster than most species' nervous systems could register threat and begin evasion. At one point the crocodile turned in its tank and regarded the class with one enormous eye. Cadet Yellick made the sound again. Mara described the death roll, the technique a saltwater crocodile used to subdue prey too large to swallow whole, with anatomical precision and zero emotion, in the same tone she used to describe everything else. She mentioned, in passing, that crocodiles were capable of this maneuver in water, on land, or partially out of the water if they got enough grip. She showed photographs of crocodiles crossing roads. She showed a photograph of a crocodile that had, apparently, entered a building through an open door and been found in a kitchen. They're very motivated, she explained. By what? Veyron asked despite himself. Food, mostly. Occasionally territory. She scrolled to the next slide. Occasionally they seem to just be curious. We're not always sure. After the presentation, Veyron gave her the highest marks he had awarded in 11 years. He wrote in the comment field, thorough, well-researched, clearly presented. Then he sat for a moment and added, the instructor found the subject matter unexpectedly illuminating. He then pulled up Earth's file again and read it more carefully than he had the first time. High stimulus biosphere, 7.4. 7.4. He read the list of species that fell under top predator, coastal and inland water. The saltwater crocodile was item 3. Items 1 and 2 were not crocodiles. Veyron closed the file. He looked at the whiteboard, where the afternoon's schedule read, next week, Cadet Ellison, continued Earth Fauna Survey. He thought about his fingers. He still had 8 of them. He was fond of all 8. He opened the file again and began reading about something called a great white shark. By the time he reached the section on box jellyfish, he had already decided to apply for academic sabbatical. By the time he reached bullet ants, he was filling out the forms. By the time he reached humans themselves, classified as persistence predators capable of tracking prey across continental distances until prey death by exhaustion. Professor Kale Veyron put down the datapad, looked at the ceiling, and thought very quietly. No wonder she wasn't afraid of the crocodile. She grew up on the same planet as it.